Alright, hi everyone. I'm Warlord Magni, and thanks for coming to the next installment of my Newb to Warlord series. This is Man at Arms Sean, aka Dummy. And today I'm going to talk about drills. Right? So, the point of drills is to build muscle memory, to build reflexes, as well as instinct. Okay? Um, Typically, you want to include drills within your training to begin to build skills, right? To build reflex instinct off the field, like when you are not at park, at fighter practice. This is something that you're doing kind of on your own time, but you could also do them at park days and fighter practice as well. Um, my suggestion is whenever you are doing drills to have a targeted goal, right? Every drill that you're doing should be trying to build a very specific skill or build out a certain area within your fighting repertoire, right? If you are going to just block strike, I will talk about block strike later, but if you're just going to block strike and, Sean and I are just hitting back and forth, you're supposed to hit every time, right? And we're just doing this. Yeah, we're going to build this sort of muscle memory, but it's not one, that's not how the actual fights in LARP are going to happen, but it's also very, I think it's a unuseful, inefficient use of your time as well as your partner's time, right? Whereas if we're going to block strike and I want to specifically target the openings, right? So I throw, Sean throws, and I want to break the timing or whatever, then that is a better use of block strike. Or if you're brand new or you're trying to just build shot reflex, then doing this sort of back and forth, going back to guard, being very conscientious about resetting back to guard is still a very useful use of your time. It's very efficient in that regard. But if Sean and I are well initiated, just doing the back and forth, reset to guard is not effective, or it's not efficient. Okay? So be targeted with your goals, and what you're trying to get, and understand what you're trying to get out of the drill. And you can do drills on everything, right? It can be your shot work, it can be your footwork. You should do more of that. This could be your offensive fighting, it could be your defensive fighting, it could be fighting on the move, right? Like a lot of people do block strike where you're just going back and forth, but again, most fights aren't stagnant. Let's come a little bit this way, right? So throw, block, and move, right? So now this is a very different fight from this angle than if Sean and I were fighting here, right? So a lot of people, in my experience, especially at the mid, lower tiers, and even some of the upper tier fighters, aren't moving and throwing at the same time. So if you can learn how to move and throw, then that gives you a leg up. So we're actually going to talk about that later, or a couple drills that you can use on that. But again, the drills that you can do are kind of endless, and be creative when you're trying to think about your drills and how to build out your portfolio as a fighter. So you can do drills by yourself. You can do it with a buddy. There's a variety of different types of drills that you can do. I'm going to go through a series of drills, solo drills, specifically to help give ideas about the things that you can do to give to begin to plant the seeds of how to build out your portfolio as a fighter. All right, so if we're just talking about solo drills, I think footwork is one of the most important things to build upon, right? Like when we talk about being a fighter, whenever I teach anybody, it starts from the ground up. It starts from your stance, right? You want to have your feet a little bit more than hip apart, a little bit on your knees. Your weight should be in the middle, sunk into your hips a little bit. Starting from there, right? And then now, how do I do the basic movements, right? Step forward, step back. If a lot of these concepts are new, go to my very first video, Day 1 Fundamentals. But once you know what the footwork is, what the motions are, practice that, right? So if you're not very familiar or the mechanics are not built into your brain, then begin to build or work on your footwork, right? So it could be as very simple as taking 5 steps forward, 5 steps back. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm only doing 4, right? And then back, right? This is a great way to learn how to do those basic movements. Again, if you want to go now sideways, right? Practice that. Practice lunges, where I start here doing a little hop, right? And then you could do a longer one, or like a teleport here, right? You can do all of these different things to build your footwork up. Additionally, when we talk about footwork, if I do that like teleport hop or that teleport lunge, where I'm here, all of my weight is now loaded into my quads. If Sean and I were fighting sword and board, and I'm here, I now have to figure out how to recover, right? So what, like drilling out that recovery step of, okay, Sean is going to be my opponent. I'm going to teleport lunge, and now I have to defend. Or I have to try to kill Sean. Sean's just going to stay there, right? Or like try to kill me, right? You can work. I know I was saying solo, but that is a partner drill that you can do, right? So it talked about basic movement, lunges, back steps, lateral steps, right? So if I'm going directly this way, right, practicing this back and forth. Again, we are trying to focus in drills on building the foundations and the muscle memory. That's often what I recommend drills for. If you have a Pell, right? So Sean is going to be my punching bag for this example. As always, this is a great way to begin to build your shot movement, or build your shot memory and your accuracy, right? What is it? The Bruce Lee quote of, I fear a man that has practiced, or I don't fear the man that has practiced 10,000 kicks, but I fear the man that has practiced one kick 10,000 times, right? And so the reason why is because this shot, right? If I've practiced this again and again and again, I know exactly where my sword is going to go every time I throw it. That is more of a threat than just throwing and not being conscious and thinking about what you're actually doing. Okay. So you can do this, right? Just the cross, the straight shot, the slash, the stab, right? You can practice a variety of different shots, and go check like any of the stuff that I teach in any of my prior videos. If you see something of like, oh, I like the money shot, or I like the spin, or I like whatever, I want to learn that. That is a great opportunity for you to use drills to build that skill up. One thing that I also want to talk about really briefly is whenever you begin to build or like regiment drills, if you're learning a new concept, don't start at 100%, right? If you don't know how to move correctly and you're going to teleport lunge, right? If I'm doing this, and if you don't know how to properly do that, you can hurt yourself very easily, right? So just don't go balls to the wall. Build yourself up. Start with smaller lunges or smaller hops, and then now you go further, and then you go further, right? You build your body to be able to get to the point where you can do the cool stuff or whatever that real goal is. Okay. Additionally, with like footwork and stuff or body movements, level changes. A lot of my fighting style, come here. A lot of my fighting style is fighting here and then fighting here, right? For example, just this squat. I know a lot of people, not everybody can do this squat right away, right? So build that skill up. Don't just pop it and drop it and then break your ankle or pop your back out of place, right? You gotta be able to build that strength, right? But if you can do that level change, you know, this deep lunge right here, not everybody can do this. Build yourself up. If you can't do it, that's okay. All right. I know I'm a skinny beanpole, right? So I'm also pretty flexible, but I wasn't able to do this in overnight. It took me years of training and practice to be able to throw like that, right? So you can build your skills up through drills, do it slowly, you know, whether it be half-time, partial movements, so on and so forth. Additionally, with like footwork, you don't always have to use standard fighting equipment. You can use jump rope, right? You can use speed ladders. You can use other sporting equipment that is made to build up mobility and strength to begin to pull it over into amtgard fighting, right? Jump rope is going to teach you how to move on your feet quickly, right? That's a great opportunity to begin to take something, just rope, right? Like, how much is a piece of jump rope? Like $5? I really don't know. That's a great thing that you can easily regiment. You can do it at home. You can do it outside. Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Now moving into shot work a little bit more. Again, this works the best if you have a Pell. You can use a tree. If you have a dummy like Sean, you can use a buddy, right? So I think talking about shot work, one of the most important things is always practice going back to guard, okay? Right, so if I'm going to throw the shot, I always need to return back to guard, right? That's how, I guess I'll talk about it this way. Every shot, you know, if you think about this like a gun, boom, I'm fired. I now have to reload. Going back to guard is that reload. And now I can throw again. Now, granted, in amtgard, you can get around it a little bit by throw, or like throw your body into the shot. And so that's a slightly different thing. But for people starting out, going back to guard is very, very important, because I see a lot of people start this game and they'll throw one shot, you get in close, and then they're just like, I don't know what to do, right? And then you die. So practice going back to guard. Additionally, you can work on combos through drills. I've said this drill multiple times in multiple videos, is the clockwork drill, where we divide the body into 6 parts. So part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, part 6. And what you do is you go 1, 1, or 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, right? You get the gist. Now I get to 1, 6, 2, 1, 2, 2, right? 2, and then you go around. If you mess up, if, you know, I'm on 2, 2 and I do 2, 1, start over, right? So then you have to go from 1, 1 all the way back. And then the goal is to get to 6, 6. You can do this with a slightly heavier sword, and then you're going to build up more strength in your forearms. And then when you actually come to a fighter practice or a park day, and you pick up a normal weighted stick, you're going to be able to go farther, and you're going to be able to fight longer, right? Guard stance, guard placement, and guard switching. So this is like the most applicable for Florentine. So, you know, your standard guard with single sword, boom. Standard guard with Florentine, about here. When I talk about guard switching, it's when you switch your stance. What foot is forward? So I can be here, but I can be here, right? So if I can move in a fight dynamically, so if Sean and I start in this fight, and I step forward here, I now have more access with this arm, right? But when I'm here, right, I'm out of range. But if I take this one step forward, I can get on the inside. A bunch of stuff can happen. But if you aren't versed in how to do a stance switch in Florentine or, say, in Sword and Board, you can get killed pretty easily. So if I'm board foot forward, here, you... Actually, no, I'll stay here. So if I'm board foot forward, my right shoulder is forward. Huh? Or I'm sword foot forward, sorry. If I'm sword foot forward, my right shoulder is forward. If I stance switch to board foot, there is a moment that I am crossed. I am fully square. That is the most vulnerable point. If I don't know how to stance switch properly, I can get eaten up by my opponent, and it's happened many a times, and man, have I learned my lessons, right? So being smart in understanding how to stance switch, it may have been very subtle, but when I switched, right, my board is a little bit lower, I'm not as engaged here, I pull the board up to protect my shoulder, right? That's a little bit like exaggerated in how I'm actually going to fight for purposes of the video. But even if I'm going board foot forward and I'm stepping sword foot forward, I am exposing my hip more. And so what I will often do when I'm fighting somebody that is board foot forward and then steps in, I money them. Because their guard is typically high up and they're putting their hip into range. It's out of range and then it's in range for me to get, right? So I will wait for somebody to come in and I'll throw. So being able to know how to block that, and so you can do that by dropping your guard down if you want. I mean, some of this will come into reading the fight. It also depends on your body mechanics, how you are as a person. And if I think one of the best ways to learn when it comes to these specific categories is have your buddy do this with a buddy and just continue to throw that shot, right? So Sean and I would be here, and Sean knows that I'm going to throw the money. And so Sean needs to learn how to protect the hip, right? So every time Sean steps in, right, you blocked it, okay? And then we do it again, right? Now, the way that Sean's doing this, I would advise him not to do it, because if me as being the Warlord mentor person that I am, I would fake, so step, fake, and then try to stab or go over, right? This is a little bit more in, I will use something until it works, and then I'll change it up to so my opponent doesn't ever know what's going on. But for the purposes of learning, of getting Sean to know the right body mechanics, that is where we are just going to be here, and I'm going to oh, you were supposed to step in. Yeah, that's my fault. Yep. I'm going to wait for Sean to step in, and I'm going to throw. Right, that was a little bit better. Sean used more of his board to protect his body than throwing his sword down and stuff like that. Right, so stance switching, just again, stance switching, practicing from going from right foot forward to left foot forward, or left foot forward to right foot forward, and doing it on a forward step as well as a backward step. Okay, it's going to matter if on the forward step versus the backward step, if I am going to engage, or say I have a board, I'm going to engage my opponent, or if I need to defend, right, and disengage. Okay, let's see. For shot work, you can do additionally any sort of shot that you can think of. You know, this could be a dark side. Again, anything that I've showed in any of my videos from previously, if you like it, take it, and then just try to build yourself up to that skill. you know, the dark side is, it's when we're here. I want my opponent to throw a high cross, and then I dark side, right? I'm coming around, boom, 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 right? And so practicing that, when I was on my climb, I practiced the dark side a lot, right? And so this may not be like the perfect place to talk about this, but when you throw a dark side, you throw the board over. What I used to do is I would throw the board over, I would bring the sword here, and then I would throw, right? But that's, I'm now, when I bring the sword here and then I throw, my sword's tied up for a second. There's like a dead time. Whereas instead, to get a more optimized path, I'm coming around and then throwing. There's no point in me coming here and throw. Does that make sense? Right? So practicing sort of like optimizing your shot pattern or your shot path is really valuable as well. Let's see, what else? If you're by yourself, you can do the shadow blocks. And so what I mean by that, you have your 4 standard blocks where you're in standard guard, block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4. If you don't have anybody to fight with, this is a great time where you're just in guard and you go boom, 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 right? And then now you do the other side. And again, just building muscle memory, building that internal reflex. So when you see a shot coming, right, I don't have to think, I can just respond. The less you have to think within a fight, that's less, how do I want to say this? That's less mental brain power that you have to focus on trying to win. You can use that active brain power in the fight on other things, on like how to get them to move their equipment so you can kill them, right? If I am always focused on like, oh, how do I do a block? I can't think of how do I get Sean to move his guard so I can snipe his arm or whatever. Okay. Shots on the move, right? This is something that I talked about a little bit earlier. A lot of people will do block strike very stagnant. Boom, 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 boom. Again, this is not how we fight, right? We are rotating. You're supposed to be better.
Working on it.
Right. It also doesn't have, like, you can throw the same shot. It doesn't always have to be here, right? I'm going to throw this money every time. Throw it as I'm walking around. If I have a tree, say Sean is a tree, he's a very small sapling, right? I'm just going to throw, 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 right? I'm using my footwork and working the shot movement at the same time. Again, not a lot of people do this. I think it's really influential because your opponent now has to focus on a moving piece of equipment and your body. It's 2 pieces of information that have to be tracked. Whereas if you were just fighting here, they just have to focus on one. All right. So you don't have another person to fight with, and you want to work on like accuracy. Are you okay?
I'm fine.
I need your board. So if you have a door in your house, like most people do, there's the doorknob drill or the wall drill. Well, where this is a wall. You're gonna move this way, right? So this is the door, right? Yeah, Sean is the door. Okay, and so what you can do, and you just want to work on fast movements and controlled here. So the reason why this is a good drill, pick up your sword, is if you can get a double shot. No, give me that arm.
Okay.
Like square up. No. Like get into guard. Move the board. Sorry. Okay, so what you can do is if somebody has a very vertical guard, throw. Or throw. That's a death, right? If you could do that really fast, you win. So using a door, a doorknob, or like a wall end, you can practice that drill. Tegan, I think that would be really great in your arsenal. Yeah, so those are some solo things. Everything that I've talked about right now, you could also do with a buddy. If Sean and I wanted to work on the doorknob drill together, then it would just be me and Sean doing this. Now, I would want Sean to try different guards or something like that, right? We could work it up to build out that skill. All right, now for specific buddy duo drills, I already talked about block strike, right? So the whole point of block strike is to begin to build the response reflex, right? So if Sean throws a high cross, boom. The point, in my opinion, to build a block strike is to learn where on your opponent is open, right? With the high cross, this is always open. So like 85, 90% of all returns are always going to become here, or you just do I'm going to return with the high cross because that's what everybody does, right? But with block strikes, I recommend people to do more than just this, right? Mix it up. Okay, I'm going to throw here, and I killed Sean, right? Or throw other side, right? You're breaking the tempo. I see a lot of people that train block strike, and they get super ingrained in block strike, and then I will use that block strike mentality or those ingrained body mechanics, muscle memory for them as a weapon against them, right? Because if every time, say Sean is a block striker, I throw, Sean expects a return, and he always respects the return to be there, I could come on the inside. I could come over. I could hit his hip. I could stab him, right? There's like 8 different simple shots that I could do on Sean. The world is open, okay? Don't set yourself in a box, especially when doing block strike. Be very conscientious not to overtrain it to the point that it is just this, okay? Additionally, you can practice on being fully offensive or fully defensive. This is one of my favorite drills that I would do with my buddy in my first couple of years of fighting amtgard, where, all right, we're going to be sword and board, okay? Or we could do single sword, you could do any category. I am going to be fully attacking Sean, and Sean's whole role is to see how long he can survive, okay? Or vice versa, right? If it was me, I would be here for a very long time. Right? But that teaches you how to engage. Now, again, you have to be very careful. If you are always practicing offense, you're never going to be prepared for the riposte, for the return of your opponent. So you have to be very careful, right? To not just do, okay, you're going to block better, right? That's never how a fight is actually going to happen. I'm going to throw, and Sean's going to return. Like, my opponent always has an opportunity to return. So if I'm always engaged on, I can throw every single time and don't have to worry, I'm always going to die. Like, that's a great way to set yourself up for failure. But working on full offense or full defense begins to build memory, muscle memory, or skills in how to have follow-up shots if you're doing full offense. Or in full defense, you're going to learn how to block multiple shots from any different area. Does that kind of make sense? Again, shots on the move. I hopefully have beat this part to death. It can be any shot. It can be, also, like, you need to vary up your movement. for the sake of it, so far I've always shown my movements in this direction. I'm not bound to this direction. I can go this way, right? I can throw that. One of my favorite shots to throw or setups is I will move in this direction and I'll throw this way. It is misdirecting my opponent. Again, 2 pieces of information. My body's moving that way, the shot's coming from this way. So my opponent has to pick in a split second where their guard's going to go, especially if it's single sword. Now, if it's Florentine or sword and board, there's a little bit more nuance there, right? Because you have a second piece of equipment. I can block more of my body, whatever, right? But in single sword, throw, right? I can block my hand, whatever. But again, work that into your drills, into your skill set. This is a great opportunity as well to doing like full offense and full defense of moving around your opponent while you're fighting. Let's see. You can do A-range fighting. So that's when, this is typically in sword and board, where we are just going to be here. And so what you do in this sort of scenario is we are not going to move. We are not going to ever engage anywhere other than A-range, right? Now, that doesn't mean that we can't start out here and I can't do a setup where, something like that. But the point of the A-range fight, and a lot of people in amtgard specifically don't have great expertise or don't feel very comfortable when their opponent is board to board, okay? So this is a great way for you to build that comfort to be in this range, right? And so a lot of people from A range, will throw this over. You can begin to build fakes, disengagement shots, right? Whatever. But practicing being able to fight as well as defend here is a good skill to have, especially if you're going for the climb. And honestly, I think A-range fights are super fun because it's really grindy, high octane, and then you feel very tired at the end. So, dopamine. Okay, what else? I think this is a little bit more abstract or a little bit harder to do, but when you're coming up and you're trying to make that transition from mid to high tier, using your brain, drilling, like working with your brain, drilling your mental game is really important. So, go sword and board. Right, so practice reading and practice planning on how to fight. So, and this is something that you can do with your opponent. Or, Sean and I are going to work this drill together, and I'm going to say, Sean, I want you to try to throw something new at me every single time. Right, that's a great opportunity for Sean to learn how to vary his fighting style and integrate new things into his portfolio and try things out in new and unique different ways. But that is also a great way for me to try to figure out what Sean is going to do, right? And so building that skill of seeing my opponent and saying, all right, well, based off of their stance, Sean's knees are locked. He's not really going to be able to move, so he's probably not going to come and engage on me. I'm probably going to have to engage on him, right? His sword hip is a little bit more forward, so that's probably the juiciest part to be able to attack. Maybe I'm going to, come in, engage, throw high, and then, throw a money shot and back out, and then re-engage, right? That's a very simple sort of planning that I just walked you guys through, but you can do this every single time. And this is also a good skill if you have a buddy that is around the same skill level as you to begin to build out. And also if you're a little bit newer to fighting, I would say first focus on the fundamentals, and then you can begin to build the mental game a little bit more, right? It doesn't matter if I know what my opponent is going to do, if I can't control my own shots and I can't control where my shot is going to go and how to defend, Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So the last bit of this, just general tips that I have when it comes to doing drills. Again, be very targeted in what you're going to do. You know, the reading assessment, I am trying to build that reading skill and understanding and predicting what my opponent is going to do. Be creative with your skills or with your drills, right? Think about yourself as a fighter and think about where you lack. And sometimes this may take a mentor or somebody more experienced than you to tell you. Sean could, maybe your fighting partner, it can be like, hey, I'm noticing you're getting eaten up on your sword side hip, whatever, right? Another good thing to practice, which I forgot to mention, is if you are at the point where you have fundamentals down, but you're also still trying to build that mental game, after every fight, sit down or like take a moment between fights with your buddy and walk through what happened. Right? How did the engagement start? What did I throw? What did you throw? And then how did it go from there? Right? I know a lot of people will be like, hey, was that shot in time? Or like whatever, like what just happened there? And people are like, I don't know. I don't know. Right? You being able to know what happened within the fight will be able to teach you how you failed or how you succeeded. And then if you know how you fail or succeed, you can build plans off of that in the future. This is really important if you want to be to that top tier, because not every fight is the same. Every fight is different. Every fight that I fight with Sean is a new and unique puzzle, and I cannot guarantee that Sean is going to be the same, like the combo to win is going to be the same every time. Even if, like when I moved here and Sean was still learning, I would throw the same shot. I would just eat Sean's hip up. Yummy. Right? But then eventually, it may not have been 3 times of killing Sean the same way. It may have been 6, it may have been 7, it may have been 10. I don't know. I wasn't counting. Okay? But eventually Sean learned. Right? So then I have to, I can't just use this shot. I mean, I hit Sean's arm, but I can't use this shot every time. I gotta figure something else out. Right? So now, how do I adapt? How do I change? Drilling things out like that. I think people don't use their mental game, drill the mental part of this game enough, and don't exclude that. Always, I think drills are the most important for supplementing the weakest parts of your fighting style. A part of your portfolio, your repertoire. I know that I'm not the best left-handed fighter, and so what I know I personally need to do is I need to just pell with my left hand to build that muscle memory better, right? And so what I've kind of started doing at Parks is starting to fight left-handed with sword and board, so I can like survive. Now, granted, there's like a whole like dopamine hit thing. I don't like losing a lot. I mean, like imagine that. But I know my left arm is weak. It's a very weak part of my fighting. So using drills that require me to use my left arm and build that muscle, like that muscle mind connection, is a way for me to grow as a fighter. And so just try to figure out what your weak points are. Let's see. You can also do conditional fighting. I think this is really fun. This, I would say, is really great for people that are the big fish in the small pond sort of scenario, right? You're the best fighter at your park, and everybody else is not near your level. What you can do is you can do a conditional fight where, all right, Sean and I are sword and board. I know these are a lot of sword and board drills, but you can do this with any other sort of option or other category. And so my condition, I'm going to set a condition for me to win, or that I have to throw, or I have to set up a sequence, and only when that sequence is completed can I do a killing shot, right? So that could be like, I want Sean I want Sean to throw a high cross so I can kill him on a dark side. And so I need to get Sean to throw a high cross. How do I get Sean to throw a high cross?
It's not that hard.
I mean, yes, I know, but right, everybody's different. So it can be this, right? Maybe this will get Sean to throw. I mean, I got tagged.
I better.
I should. Sorry. Right? But it could be that, boom. Or it can be this. You're supposed to return.
No.
It's fine. Right? It doesn't always have to be a high cross. It could be, I want to take two, like, I want to move 2 times around my opponent or implement 2 footsteps, big footwork motions before I take a killing blow or I throw a killing blow. Or if you're practicing like certain combos, getting that setup to work, right? The conditional fighting is more to build your setups. I think setups is probably one of the most difficult things for people to learn. I like, how do you get your opponent to be in the right position in the right way for whatever you're going to throw to land and so you can win, right? So doing conditional fighting is a great way, or conditional fighting drills is a great way to build that skill, right? So, you know, I need Sean to be able to, if I want, say, switch sides. Say I want that board side hip, okay? I need to get Sean to put his shield foot forward so I can get it. Because if I throw here, it's really hard for me to get it. Now, if you switch, I can almost get it from here, right? So there's no point in me throwing for the shield side hip when his stance is switched. So how do I get him to switch his stance, right? You know, okay, I move forward, throw, right? Or, okay, that was like kind of okay. Okay, so I step forward, pump high, and then I throw. Or I step in, and then I drop. You know, you got to kind of figure out what works for you. This is going to be different for every fighter that you're going to fight. But beginning to build those skills of problem solving and figuring out how to set up the fight is really crucial. That's kind of all I have. Hopefully, y'all were able to get something out of this. But, you know, drills are great. Again, just as a recap, in like passive time as well as active time, I would play a lot of drills in my head. You know, just thinking about like at work, when I was learning how to throw money, I would look really dumb and walk around my office and just like doing this. Right. I mean, granted, I would show up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, so I was like the only person in the office, so I didn't look like entirely dumb, or nobody was around to see me, so it was kind of okay. Right. But like, I'm not in amtgard time, or I'm not on stickwork time, but I'm still drilling out like this is the body mechanic, learning that body mechanic, or learning the combo, right? Excuse me. Yeah, right. You want to use it to build out your skills, be creative. It doesn't always have to be at park. It can be off time, working on your mental game, really important. The last thing that I want to say is don't think that drills are the end all be all, okay? Because the point of the drill is to have a semi-controlled environment for you to build a skill. But when you are in a fight, on the field, on a ditch field, in a tournament, that's not controlled. Sean, you know, if Sean and I is like, oh, we're going to do block strike, I can't guarantee my opponent in a tournament is going to agree, like, going to say, okay, well, I'll block strike you, right? Like, we'll play this game. You know, you got to be very careful. And then you also have to be careful not to set yourself up for failure. What I was talking about with like putting yourself in a box when it comes to block striking. Oh, we're just gonna do this. Boom, 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 boom. Because if somebody picks up on that, I'm now very predictable, and then I will die. If your opponent is able to do all that upper level stuff. But again, hopefully everybody was able to take something away from this. I really appreciate your time and attention, and I look forward to seeing you guys on my next Newb to Warlord series. Thanks, guys.